The protagonist for this story is Fiona Green, the illegitimate child of a count that lived through a miserable childhood. However, as she grew up, she showed great talent in the art of magic, and eventually became a renowned mage. She was meant to be the typical heroine, however. This was not her fate. A pen slams on the desk as someone screams Fiona. It was her father, Count Green, asking if his daughter was listening to him. Fiona begs for forgiveness, as her father calls her a rude child. The oldest son of Count Green, Caindel, then tells his father to not get upset over a low-born wretch. This angers Fiona, but she knows she has to endure it, no matter how badly they mistreat her. At this point, she is only 13 years old and a helpless, illegitimate child who everyone in the family thinks of as a thorn to their side. It turns out that someone has been reborn as Fiona Green. As mentioned before, right now her family finds her to be a nuisance, but eventually she will grow to be a renowned genius mage that is praised by all. Despite this, our protagonist still does not find becoming Fiona Green to be a good thing, since it turns out Fiona Green is not the heroine in this story, but actually the final boss. Fiona is meant to be defeated and suffer an epic death by the hands of the hero and heroine who are strengthened by the power of love. A truly sad way for the story to end. The book was called The Emperor and the Saint, and it was a love story between an emperor and a saint who saved the world. Fiona Green was shown no mercy in this cruel world, causing her to be a villain, and by the end of the story she was close to becoming an immortal that posed a major threat to the main couple. The hero ended up decapitating Fiona before pulling out her still-beating heart to puncture it. Her head was hung on the castle walls for all to see, with her remains burned to ashes. Her soul was then cast into the darkness where it would suffer for the rest of eternity. All this was Fiona's true fate and a possible future for our current protagonist. This causes our protagonist to wonder if she would be able to live the earth peacefully if she died now instead. As she stares at her tea, she shakes her head and tells herself to stop thinking about this, or she'll get yelled at for not paying attention again. Her father is talking about a bleak situation in the front line and how the Emperor is requesting for Mage to be dispatched to the northern front lines. The Emperor has requested it be a mage from this family. More background information is given telling us that the original novel actually begins in 6 years. At the moment, the Empire is weak from battling with demonic monsters, which was the author's way of paving the path for a hero and heroine to come in and save the world. However, this is the reality our protagonist in Fiona's body has faced right now. The father continues by saying one of his children must head out to the front line. This shocks 2 of his blonde children. The father continues that the House of Green are famous for being mages, so of course the Empire would request them, and then questions which one of his children will join the war. He asks if anyone would like to volunteer, as we see Caindel completely silent. He then elbows Fiona as she screams in pain. He then calls her a vermin and tells her that she should go. All the children in the family, apart from her, had a countess mother, so it's not surprising they'd want someone useless like her to go instead of them, despite the fact that she is only 13 years old. Caindel then raises Fiona's hand for her and yells that he would like to volunteer but is too shy to say it. She tries to yell, "Wait!" as she curses her brother in her mind. Her father is smiling and glad to see she is volunteering, which makes her wonder if they both set this up. Fiona pulls her hand away from him as he tells her to be grateful and that it is an honor for a lowly wretch like her to serve the family. The blonde girl chimes in saying she agrees with him, saying Caindel has to carry the family name on and that she herself will be marrying soon. She also says Zen, the other blonde brother, will be engaged soon. She continues saying that it is best if Fiona went, to which Fiona thinks to herself about how all of them beforehand would tell her she does not deserve to learn magic and lock her away in the attic daily. She does, however, actually know the basics of magic and opens her mouth to speak, as everyone in the room glares menacingly at her. She did not have a choice in this matter, as we see nobody in the manor is on her side. Even the maids don't respect her. Fiona was only a side character in the story, who only gets a brief backstory mentioning that she was mistreated by her family for being an illegitimate child. She says that she will go as she truly has no choice, as even if she kills her family now, she'd just end up in jail. The family then started to laugh, saying she made the right choice, and that raising her turned out to be worth it. She then realizes now that this was the only reason they let her out of the attic and invited her to the family dinner. As they laugh, our protagonist has tears in her eyes, as she has never felt this level of sadness since she entered Fiona's body. She begins to wonder if this was how the original Fiona felt as well, being loved by no one and resented by the rest of the world. This all eventually led her to make bad decisions and go down the wrong path, one that she could never return from. Unlike Fiona, our protagonist does not hate anybody here, and this is due to the fact that this entire world is her own creation. At Duke Halen's castle in the northern front lines, Fiona stares out the window at the snowstorm. She continues walking with a man and thinks about the castle's strong presence. She thinks the place honestly seems more like the castle of an evil overlord before the man ushers her ahead. He orders the guards to open the door as Fiona shouts at how large the doors are. The door begins to creak open, emitting a faint light, before the light covers Fiona's face, and then finally sees Duke Halen of the North. He talks about how he heard a mage was coming to help, and wonders what a scrawny kid is doing here. This is Abel Halen, the man who will be Sigrun's mentor, and the male lead's ally who was very popular amongst readers. The only issue with him is that he is only nice to the main character and his friends, as we see the Duke randomly ordering someone's execution. Fiona notes that he is much younger than he was during the novel and must be in his prime right now. She then bows down and introduces herself as Fiona Green. The Duke questions his aide Jaren about what is going on, to which Jaren says that Count Green told them he was sending someone from his direct lineage. The Duke grits his teeth in anger as the Count had sent him a tiny girl. He assumes the Count is taking him for a fool and declares that after the war is over, he will destroy the Green household. Fiona is now in comical despair as her family is now doomed, having angered this guy. She then realizes she is in far greater trouble than her family at the moment as the Duke continues to glare at her. He then steps towards her until he is standing directly over her, and then asks her to explain why Count Green sent her. He then asks if there are no other able-bodied individuals in the house. Fiona is in silence before mentioning the oldest brother has to carry the family name, the sister will get married, and the other brother will be engaged soon. She then says that is the reason why she was sent, which causes Jaren to feel sorry for her. The Duke scoffs and thinks the Green household is treating this war as a game, and thinks he understands what is going on here. He then stares over at her again, before saying she has courage for coming, but they don't need a kid like her. He turns around and tells her to return home. As he walks away, Fiona gets angry at the Duke for thinking she is a waste of time, and also knows that there is nowhere for her to return to. During the novel, the real Fiona was not aware of her talent, and had been cast away by both the House of Green and Halen. The pain from this abandoning was what originally sent Fiona down the wrong path. Fiona here clenches her fist as she knows she is different, and then yells at the Duke to wait as she has something to tell him. He turns around, and she tells him that she will not obey his order to leave, and that she will prove her worth to him here rather than be kicked to the streets. In her mind, she knows that once the male lead appears, the war will die down. So she just needs to hang on till then, and save some money to eventually leave and live in a peaceful countryside. She continues to the Duke, saying she will not go back, and that's she not asking for him to just let her stay here. She just wants to be given a chance to prove herself. He then questions her being a child and asks if she plans to do housework. She responds by saying she will fight as a mage and that she can help win the war. The two men stare at the young girl, and then the Duke and Fiona stand silently in front of one another. Suddenly, Fiona has an internal screaming moment as she wonders if Will call her an impudent child before kicking her out. The Duke lets out a smile before extending his arms out to reach for her. He then tells her that this is the funniest thing he has heard lately. He continues to reach for her hand as he further states to her that he enjoyed her joke. Now holding her hand, he tells her that he shall give her a chance to prove her worth. The snowstorm continues to rage on in the north as the aide returns back to the Duke. The Duke asks about the child, to which Jaren responds by saying he has guided her to her room. The Duke notes that the child is very arrogant and asks for his aide's opinion on the girl. He mentions that she is clever for her age, but despite this, she is still just a child. The aide asks if the Duke will really send her out to battle, to which the Duke says she did volunteer. He says that she will be sent to the second rampart in 2 days, which causes Jaren to question this decision. Jaren talks about how that area is full of demons and the most dangerous area in the front lines. The Duke reassures him, as the Duke himself will be going with her. He steps over to the window and stares outside, before saying that if the girl turns out to be useless, he will feed her to the wolves. Fiona lays flat in bed and recalls how intimidating the Duke was. She cannot believe the fact that she is scared of her own creation. She then decides to stop thinking about the battle ahead and just get rest for now. She's so worn out and can no longer do anything as she dozes off. The castle gates rise as a carriage driven by horses rides out. As the Duke rides a horse nearby, he tells Fiona that the time has come for her to prove her worth. She tells him, "Yes, Your Grace," but in her mind she notes that her creation really has nothing going for him apart from his looks. The Duke then smirks and asks if she is scared, to which she says there is no point in that. Even though she is trying to look cool, she is actually terrified as she is just a 21st century girl going to fight demons. She, however, has no choice but to do so, considering how Fiona's future will turn out. The Duke continues to pester her, saying he will not protect her, meaning she may die. However, she keeps a cool face, saying she is not scared. In her heart, her worst fear is a future with no hopes and dreams, so if she dies now, it is better than her soul suffering for eternity. This is why she absolutely hates the fact she was reborn as Fiona and preferred a non-significant character instead. At the second rampart, the bells ring, alerting people of the presence of demons. The Duke calls for everyone to get into position. He then turns and tells Fiona that her time to prove herself has come. The weight of the moment then sets on Fiona, as she wonders how she can be of use now. She then stares at the stairway and tells him that she will be heading to the top of the wall. She rushes up the stairs as she notes it is her first time in battle, so she must see what the battlefield looks like. She notes that she has described it in her writing before, but this is different from seeing it with one's own eyes. She stands above the wall in shock, before the Duke asks for her first impressions. We are then given the view that Fiona sees, with soldiers screaming to burn the beasts, and many laying on the floor asking for help. Her hands tremble and she comments how horrible the sight is. She actually is not terrified of the sight, but of the thought that she created all this. The Duke thinks she is scared stiff and tells her that she can leave if she's realized how foolish she was. She then tells him no. Before we see her hands are casting a spell, she decides that since she caused this, she will have to take responsibility starting now. What makes someone a great mage is their ability to use minimal amounts of magic and create the most powerful phenomena, or in simpler terms, efficiency. Fiona feels a gentle flow of mana as she prepares to cast a powerful spell for the first time. Despite being a child, she believes in Fiona's ability to do so. The Duke stares at the sky, wondering if a storm is coming, as it's starting to look different. He closes his eyes as he wishes for something, and all of the sudden the beasts on the battlefield growl. The soldiers stare in awe as lightning rains down on their enemies. The Duke's eyes have fully opened to see this as well. The lightning incinerates the beasts before they fall to the ground with a thud. Fiona then breathes a sigh of relief. The Duke is shocked and laughing before he lifts her up and tells her she looked like a god performing divine retribution. He tells her he's never seen such powerful magic and asks if she is even human. He walks with her in his arms to the edge of the wall, which causes her to get alarmed, wondering if the Duke deemed her not good enough and decided to throw her over. However, the Duke went to get a better view of the beasts retreating, to which Fiona finally sees this as well. Fiona feels great as this is her first accomplishment in this world. She notices the soldiers under her are beginning to stare at her. She notes that it is a little embarrassing being in the Duke's arms as she waves at them. The servants here all call her young prodigy Mage as her feats in battle were so impressive. Additionally, she happens to be the only child here as well, so everyone loves her. This even includes Abel. He gave a special order making sure Fiona gets fed well. This made her very happy as she has not gone a day without her pockets being full of snacks. As she strolls along, she runs into Jaren, who looks exhausted from all the work Abel gives him. She then rushes over to him, offering him candy. She asks where he is going to, which, she says, the fourth rampart as there had been an attack. Day and night attacks occur everywhere, but at the second rampart, things have gotten better due to her presence. The protagonist is shocked that this will be going on for 6 more years before the story actually starts. Fiona then asks to go with Jaren just in case, to which Jaren assures her he'll be fine. She thinks that he does not want her to go due to the fact that she was scared of looking at a dead beast last time. This means that Fiona has been following Abel around the castle since. Jaren then finally agrees. As long as Fiona does not tell the Duke, this is due to Abel disliking people imposing themselves on Fiona. They then set off. At the 4th rampart, the battle rages on. Soldiers shout at their captain for more men, wondering when they will arrive, with someone noting that Fiona Green will be here soon. The two arrive at Rampart 4, as a soldier briefs them on the situation. Jaren talks with the man, as Fiona gazes off into the distance, thinking about how she's grown used to this horrid scene. She then decides that she will not stand around and do nothing with all this going. She walks over to some soldiers and helps them burn down bodies using her mana and lightning. She tells the soldiers that she will handle this area, so they should go work elsewhere. She spent the day incinerating bodies one after another, and notes that there seems to be no end to this. She then runs into a young man laying in the rubble. She stares at him as he is a boy about her age. She assumes he is a mercenary and prays for him to rest in peace. She becomes thankful for the fact that she is still alive. The boy then lets out a groan, which causes Fiona to freak and wonder if he is undead. It then clicks in her head that he is a survivor as she calls for help trying to remove the rubble atop of the boy. After they are done, she notes that he has an abdominal wound and decides to turn him around so she can lay on his back. After doing so, the boy awakens his eyes, which causes her to shout at him, telling him that he will be okay. He asks for who she is, as she is glad that he is awake and believes that he should be able to survive. She then notes that he has a pretty face, and could be prettier if he was healthy. She then gets the feeling that this boy is familiar despite having never seen him before. Suddenly, a giant then appears before them, causing the boy to get alarmed. He tries to get her to look behind, as guards shout for Fiona to get back. She turns to see a shadow, as her hand gets grabbed and pulled away from the punch. The guards shout, asking if she is okay as they get ready to fight the beast. As she stares at the boy, she notes that the beast was staring at her, and if the boy had not pulled her, she would have been dead. She thought all the monsters were defeated, but it seems one survived. She then wonders what to do now, as the boy's injuries must have gotten worse after rolling to save her, and she cannot carry him out of here alone. The beast raises his hand and launches another punch at them, as Lady Fiona begins to cast a spell of lightning, which causes the creature to shout before dropping flat on its back. Her hands are charged with electricity before she feels pain due to overusing magic, but notes that this is nothing compared to what the boy feels. The soldiers ask if she is all right, to which she says that she is fine, and continues to worry about the boy. As she stared at his face, she began to remember something after looking again at his ragged clothes, black hair, blue eyes, and handsome face. He was so young that she didn't notice, but this is Sigrun, the male lead to her story. She stares in shock as he lays on her lap. She then begins to get confused, as the male lead should have shown up later, and she wonders if this is when Sigrun meets Abel. She then thinks that this isn't the time to be thinking about this, as if this is really the hero that saves the world. She cannot let him go out like this, as it may be the end of the world, but it also means she may be destined to be doomed as well. She then shouts for a physician. 2 days later, we see him lying in bed as Fiona watches over him. The physician talks about how the wound was very severe, but he will still make a full recovery. She expresses her gratitude to the man, as he tells her to call him if they need him again. She sits down in relief, as she has now prevented the end of the world. As she stares at him, she finds it hard to believe that he will become a hero praised by all. She notes that he must be like 14 right now, and remembers that she also only wrote a few words about Sigrun's past in the novel, as it was meant to be mysterious and secretive. Turns out Sigrun was an imperial prince born as an illegitimate child as well. His mother was a powerless commoner, and many considered him a thorn to their side and wished he'd disappear. The boy was scared for his life ever since he was just a child, which caused his mother to try and flee with him out of the country. As soldiers chased after them, his mother hid him in a bush, telling him that she'll be fine and will come back to get him later. This is giving Kung Fu Panda vibes already. His mom tells him that she loves him, before we see that she has failed to escape, and the soldiers continue to search the area for Sigrun. As he talks to her for the last time, she tells him he must. The rest was not heard by the reader, as Sigrun starts dashing away in tears and ends up alone in this cruel world. As he flees, he eventually ends up in the north of Halen, where he assumes no one would find him there as it is the edge of the kingdom. He would eventually meet Abel, who recognizes his skill for the sword and decides to become his mentor. This was Sigrun's backstory, which was only briefly mentioned in the novel during a chat with the female protagonist, only to serve as character development. She had thought a main character with a sad backstory was a trope anyways, so the novel never went into detail. As Fiona sits there thinking about how this kid had to go through those events, she tells him it must have been hard on him, and pats his head while apologizing. She plans to leave this place when the right time comes, but might as well be nice to Sigrun until then. Additionally, since he is the one that is supposed to defeat her, she should befriend him just in case. She thinks to herself about how she will be very nice and care for him, so that when he grows up, he will be nice as well and not defeat her. She had been staring at him all day, which caused her to feel tired and yawn. She decides to take a quick nap beside him before later deciding what to do next after he wakes up. The gentle wind blows into the window as they both peacefully sleep. Eventually, Fiona pops her head back up, wondering how long she has been out. She feels as though she is being watched, and eventually sees Sigrun staring at her. She then asks if he slept well, and that it is a pleasure to meet him. As she stares, she notes that he is much more handsome with his eyes wide open, but at the same time he looks like a wary kitten as he is not at ease. He continues to glare in silence before asking where he is and who she is. She tells him she is Fiona, and they are in Halen's castle. She asks for his name, to which he says Sigrun, and wonders how he is still alive. She realizes he does not remember anything, and tells him that a physician treated him. He is shocked by all this, as Fiona worries over his health and feels guilty about giving him a bad backstory and seeing him hurt like this. She reaches out asking if he has a fever, to which he slaps her hand away, telling her not to touch him. She then asks for him to tell her if he feels any pain, to which he starts to shout at her to mind her own business. As he shouts, she gently pokes him, which causes him to stop in pain. He screams in pain, as Fiona laughs at him for trying to be a tough guy 14-year-old child. He grabs at his ribs, as he asks her what was that for. She then lectures him that he is a patient, and that means he should tell her right away if he feels any pain. He then tells her that she is a stranger, so why would he have to tell her, and also questions why she is doing this for him. She then smiles and tells him that he saved her life as well. As he tells her he never did anything like that, someone starts stepping into the room. It is the Duke Abel. They both stare at him as he shouts at Fiona for being too young to be bringing men to her home. She tells him that it is just a boy, to which the Duke calls it the same thing. She notices that he is agitated, so decides to calmly ask what he is doing here. Abel then says he has business with the boy. He comments that a second sea urchin has found its way into his home. Fiona tells him that the boy was injured, before Abel asks where he is from, as the boy does not look like he is from Abel's land. Fiona then realizes that she never actually did mention where Sigrun was from in her story. Sigrun then tells them that he is from Karl's mercenaries. The Duke then questions if mercenaries nowadays are hiring children, as Sigrun glares at the Duke, making things awkward. Fiona then whispers in the boy's ears that the man is Duke Abel Halen. Sigrun then wonders to himself if the Duke will try to eliminate him as well. As he continues to ponder, Fiona pokes his head, telling him to knock it off. She keeps tapping as she is just trying to loosen the boy up, but it turns out it is mainly because he is cute, as Abel then grabs her head. He then pulls her away, screaming that she is too young to fool around with boys, as she tries to tell him he is just a kid. Lately, Abel has been holding her in his arms, which causes the maids to think they are like father and daughter, to which Fiona notes that they even have the same silver-colored hair. Fiona then asks if the boy can stay till he recovers at least. The Duke notes that this is the first time Fiona has requested something from him, which surprises Fiona as she has not realized that she never really wanted anything. The Duke continues saying that he does not like that she is requesting him this, but despite that agrees to give the boy a room to stay until he gets better. Fiona is excited, as the Duke is even willing to give a room, to which the Duke questions if she was planning to let the boy stay in hers. The boy is embarrassed and shouts that she is clueless and spoiled, which only makes Fiona smirk as they barely met, and the boy already hates her. She decides that Sigrun does not need to like her or know much about her, and that all he needs to do is grow to be a fine young man and fall in love with the heroine to save the world. She decides that her role is to just watch him grow and all this unfold as a loving parent. As Abel carries her away, she thanks him and tells him she will make it up to him for this, to which Abel tells her she has done enough already. Fiona then notices that his tone to her remains the same, but he is much gentler. She does not know if he likes her or not, but believes at the very least he will not be kicking her out. He then asks her why she is sighing, to which she thinks to herself about how hard it is to please everyone. Sigrun lays in the darkness as he remembers his mother's words, "You must survive, Sigrun." He rolls in bed, as he thinks about how much his mother loved him and was concerned for him down to her last breath. He remembers the scene as she grabs him by the face, telling him to survive as he calls for his mama, and notes that these words pierced him like a curse. He recalls ending up in a safer place like his mom had wanted in the north. He had gotten away from immediate danger, but had to figure out a way to get food. He then joined the mercenaries and took jobs so he wouldn't have to starve to death. People in the mercenary treated him like a servant to mop floors and constantly told him what to do. They would also beat him sometimes for no particular reason, making his body full of scars. He went through with all this, as he had to keep his mother's wishes of staying alive. However, this treatment of whacking and beatings carried on to the point where Sigrun questioned why he had to stay alive. He was always lonely, and would sleep in a pile of hay, wishing that someone in this world would want and need him. He questioned if this horrible life of his had any meaning as he slept. Narrator interjection here. If he wants to have meaning in life, he should like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. After some time, the mercenaries got hired to fight in Halen. Despite having to fight monsters, the pay was very good. The mercenaries never gave Sigrun a proper weapon, so he had to pick one up off the battlefield. He notes that one good thing about the battlefield was that it made him stronger. He was able to stay alive until the mercenaries began to lose the battle and attempt to retreat. As they ran, one of the mercenaries called him a fool and pushed Sigrun back and told him to be a meat shield so they could get away. As the man ran away, Sigrun could only think about what his mother had told him. As the beasts surrounded him, "You must survive" continued to ring in his head. He did his best to stay alive, but no matter how much improvement he had made, this would not be enough. He drops to his knees and his sword falls from his hand before he hits the floor with a thud. He wonders if this is the end and almost feels relieved if it is. The only thing he felt regret for was dying due to that one, a hole. He wished that if he were to be taken out, that he wanted it to be for someone that lived through a similar situation as his. He just wanted to save someone that truly needed his help and extend his hand out to the weak. This desire stems from the fact that nobody ever helped him in his darkest hours, and he at least wanted to be there for someone. Just hoping people did not have to go through the same hell as him was not enough. And that way of thinking led him to this point, as he wishes to believe that his hopes are not in vain. He wants for there to be a ray of light in this world, and if not, he wanted to be that ray, but now it seems impossible. As he lays in his dreams, he feels a pat in his head that is so gentle he could cry. Birds cry, as he wakes up wondering where he is. He then sees a girl laying beside his bed, which he notes is the most powerful scene he had ever seen in his life. Later at dinner, Fiona asks about his wounds, and as she tries to check on them, he smacks her hands away again. He reiterates that he told her not to touch him. Fiona believes she should not be surprised about the behavior and the fact that Sigrun has only told her his name, as she is the antagonist to his story. She then tells him that if it hurts anywhere, he should let the physician know. Sigrun calls her strange, to which she asks how so. He asks why she worries for him and if it's due to pity. He believes that she thinks of him as a wet dog or cat picked up during the rain, to which she says that's not it. She realizes that Sigrun must think she is Abel's spoiled daughter, sheltered all her life or something. She also wonders if he hates depending on a girl, and tells him that she did not bring him here out of pity. He asks if what was it then if it's not pity. In her mind, a part of the reason was the shallow thought of befriending him so the future looks better for her. But another reason was that she is the author of the story, and of course has affection for him. She then tells him while smiling that she just wanted to save him. He then gets confused and asks why, since she does not know him, to which she tells him that she is sure he's felt this way before. He is silent before shakily answering that he's never felt this way. He then says only spoiled brats like her have mushy thoughts like this, which causes her to pout. She begins to tell him she is not a spoiled brat before there is a knock on the door. Fiona then welcomes in the physician, who greets her back. She smiles as he mentions how it looks like the two young children have become friends. As the physician checks on him, Sigrun tells Fiona to go away, but she just wants to see if his wounds have healed. He then tells her not to faint when she sees his scars, to which she tells him not to worry, as she has seen many bodies before. He then tells her to get out so he can replace his bandages, as he cannot do it with her here, to which she finally agrees to leave. As she stands outside, she wonders if he was embarrassed to undress in front of her. He finds this to be cute and decides to come back later. The doctor then asks Sigrun if he has felt any pain during the night, to which he says no as he undresses. He then says that he was fine. Fiona stares in silence at the room waiting, wondering why this is taking longer than she thought, as she believes it should not take this long to replace bandages. She then remembers the "you are ignorant" stare he gave her, as wishes to continue that conversation. She is mad that he hates her and believes she is spoiled when she works just as hard as everyone here. In reality, the author had never thought about Sigrun's childhood personality, as the novel was written from the heroine, Eunice's point of view, so Sigrun's role in the story was simple. He was just meant to be the lover whose eyes were only on Eunice. Everyone wants somebody like that, right? A person who will trust you and take your side no matter what. This was the personality she envisioned for Sigrun, so she was at a loss for the way he is acting right now. She then remembers how she tried befriending him for a multitude of reasons, but this led Sigrun to be suspicious of her, thinking she was being kind for no reason. As she continues thinking, the physician calls for Fiona, and she then asks if it is over, to which the doctor tells her that his wounds are healing. But he heard that the boy worked for mercenaries and thinks that it is not a good idea for him to return. The doctor continues that the boy won't tell her, but his body is riddled with old scars. This causes Fiona to panic as she runs into the room screaming his name. She had not thought things were this bad and wonders if this is all her fault, as we see Sigrun chilling in bed drinking some water. She sits right beside him as he asks her what she wants. She then grabs him and tells him to lift his shirt, as he asks her what nonsense she is doing. She then tells him that she is sorry as she needs to do this, to which he tells her to just stop. She then tells him it will only take a second, as she feels all the bumps and scars on his body and notes that there are many. She then reveals the full extent of them, noting that they are worse than she imagined. She asks him how this happened, as Sigrun has finally had enough and shoves her away. He seems startled by how hard he pushed her and questions if she is made of air, as she is light as a feather. We then see that she has tears trickling down her face, to Sigrun's shock. He rushes down to the ground with her, asking if she is okay. He tells her to stop crying and say something, as he asks her to say where it hurts. He then stands up and decides to get the physician before she grabs at his shirt to make him stop. He asks her what it is, to which she tells him she is fine, and she continues to cry, as she knows the scars are not from battle but from being beaten senselessly and burned repeatedly. She then asks him who gave him those scars, to which he remains silent. He then asks her if the physician told her this, to which she says yes. He then sits down and asks if this is why she is crying, and then says this is why he did not want her in the room. He then questions why she is crying, since she asked to see them. He then begins to talk about how she does as she pleases, but right then she lunges in and gives him a heartwarming hug. As she hugs him, she notes that he smells of disinfectant, which makes her feel bad, as she believes it is her fault he has been suffering for so long. She believes this is all due to that one line in the novel she wrote stating that he lived through an unfortunate childhood. She continues to sniffle as she asks how this happened, to which he tells her it is nothing. He continues that the mercenaries are ruffians, and he was the youngest, so he got picked on. She stares at him and tells him that this is not nothing. He asks if she feels sorry for him. She shakes her head, as it is mainly guilt. She had never known what it was like for Sigrun, or what it was like to live in this world until she saw the battlefield. Reading the novel made it feel so distant, and plus, she was trying to avoid thinking about this type of stuff. However, when she saw the scars, it all became real to her, and part of his suffering is due to her. She is ashamed of having complained about how difficult it was to get close to him, especially after all that he's been through. She then decides to support him by his side from now on, even if he hates her. She holds his head and thinks that this is the only way to make up for what she has done to him. She tells him she is very sorry, to which he then asks her if she is sorry for taking off his shirt, to which she says of course not. She tells him it's not that, before he pats her on the head and tells her not to cry, as she wasn't the one that injured him. She then calls his name before grabbing his face and then telling him that she will never hurt him. She does not believe his emotional scars can be healed until he meets the heroine, so Fiona wants to protect him till then, and hopes he will be less wary of her. She smiles as she notes this is her tiny wish, and then tells him to be friends. He is completely shocked for a moment before turning his face and questioning how she is sad one moment and then laughing the next. He blushes as he tells her again she loves doing things as she wants. As Fiona notes, it seems he is warming up to her. She promised to him in her mind to be a great friend. Ever since this incident, she and Sigrun have grown close in the castle. We see her in a red dress carrying treats over to him, and notes that he longer snaps at her or tells her not to touch him. She notes this is progress, as of course Sigrun would not want people to touch him after being abused. She then questions if he did this because he just didn't want her to see the scars. As she hands him the treats, she pushes him back into bed, saying that his wounds will get worse moving around like this, to which he notes he is healing and he barely just walked to the door. She then closes the door, saying that one never knows unless they are fully healed, and that she is older, so he should listen. He questions her statement about age and asks exactly how old she is. She then tells him that she is 13, to which he replies that he thought she was 10, which shocks her. She then gets self-conscious, as even Abel calls her tiny all the time. She notes to herself that this is due to being locked in the attic, before Sigrun tells her he is older than her. Fiona then bets that she is mentally older, to which he doubts. He then questions why no matter what Abel feeds her, she will not grow vertically or horizontally. She notes that this causes her to have poor physical strength and not be able to use magic for extended periods of time. She then tells Sigrun that she will grow eventually, to which he doubts this as well. She then stares at him and notes that after his recovery he seems to be much more relaxed now. She also notes that he is glowing like ivory. She encourages him in her mind to use his good looks when he meets the heroine. He then asks her if something is on his face as she is staring at him. She tells him it is due to him being handsome and tells him to behave himself when dating in the future. Sigrun then starts to say something about Fiona before changing his mind. He then pats her head and wonders where she got the idea that she was mentally older than him, as she is so naive. She tells him that is not true, but before she could continue, someone slams in the room. Jaren shouts for Lady Fiona, alerting her that a large horde of beasts is approaching the second rampart, and that the full extent of their army is needed right now. She then rushes out, saying she'll be right there. Sigrun then grabs her hand as she tries to leave, asking her why she would go there. She then tells him that she is actually an enlisted mage, and her job is to protect this place. She then asks for him to please let go, but he is clenching tightly to her arm. She calls this impossible and questions why she would say this, as the second rampart is the most dangerous place. He tells her that people who train their whole lives don't last a second out there, and questions how a little girl like her could guard the place. He then yells at Jaren, thinking he is out of his mind, sending Fiona to that place, asking if there really is no one else they can send to fight. He covers her and questions if the situation is so serious they have to throw a child in battle. Fiona understands his feelings and worries that he will be kicked out if he keeps acting like this. She calls him by his name and tells him that she will be fine and not to worry. He turns around and then questions her, asking if she is even scared. She then tells him that she has nowhere else to go apart from here. She tells him that she needed a place to stay and Halen needed a mage, so there's nothing to be mad about as they are helping each other out. In her mind, she believes there is no reason to criticize them for sending her to battle, as she truly does need a place to stay until she is old enough to care for herself, while Halen needs strong magic, and this is all that matters. He asks her what her family would think, to which she tells him she is an illegitimate child, and her father and siblings were the ones that sent her here with the hopes that she wouldn't return. Sigrun stares in despair, as he had a similar experience and understands that there is no such thing as unconditional love in this world, even for a child. He puts his head down and tells her she could end up dying and asks if she is scared, to which she tells him that if that were to happen, it just means she isn't competent enough to live. She then tells him not to worry, as she is here by choice and is perfectly fine, as two men solemnly stand hearing the conversation. Sigrun stands in silence before saying, "See you later." She then annoys him with another lecture to not move much and not skip meals when she is gone. He then asks her why she is so worried about him, to which she says that he is hurt, so why would she not be worried? He stares again in silence as she leaves and reaches out with his hands in vain. He tells her to come back soon as he stands alone. The door slams behind her as she leaves. She then apologizes to Jaren for being late, as she notices Abel was here too. She realizes that he must have overheard the conversation, and Fiona thinks he looks mad, likely due to her bickering with a boy. He then speaks, saying he is sorry for being late, and begins to say something to Fiona, but decides to save it for another time as he grabs her. He then calls her by her name, to which she responds, before he tells her that she should never leave his side when they get to the battlefield. She wonders why he is saying this now, as he always kept her close anyways. The three then leave together. On that day, they successfully defended the second rampart, so more peaceful days were to come. The relationship between Sigrun and Fiona has now started to change, as Sigrun is now no longer mean to her after discovering she is a mage. However, Sigrun now looks at her with confused expressions during conversations now, and she wonders if he thinks she looks weird. His wounds have also fully healed, leaving him with no reason to stay in the Halen castle as well. But Fiona does not want to send him back to the fourth rampart with the mercenaries. She wonders what she should do as a maid, then calls for her. The Duke is requesting to see her in his office. She wonders if he has an errand for her. She also wonders if he does not trust her, as he is always keeping her by his side. She then knocks on the door, to which Abel tells her to come in. Fiona asks if he called for her, to which he tells her to take a seat first. She finds it strange he calls her by name now, before he starts talking about how he heard the boy is fully healed now. This scares Fiona because she thinks he might be looking to send him off. He continues by talking about how he does not let strangers in the castle, before letting out a smile, which causes Fiona to get further nervous. He then says that he is curious to see if she knows the boy's identity. This causes Fiona to question if Abel has run a background check on Sigrun and figures he must know that Sigrun is the Imperial Prince. She then decides to play dumb and tell him that she has no idea what he is talking about. She continues that she only knows that he is an orphan that ended up working for the mercenaries. Abel stares in silence as he tries to see through Fiona, which makes her wish he would stop. He then tells her, considering her capabilities, it is not important that she has knowledge on the boy's background. He also mentions that she sometimes acts like an innocent child, but other times she acts cool and calm-headed, and he is struggling to figure out which is the real Fiona. She tells him she is like every other girl, to which Abel tells her she is the only one that truly believes that. He tells her she is without a doubt a genius, but he is unsure sometimes if he should accept her or keep his distance from her. He continues that being strong and skilled is great, but too much of it can be a double-edged sword. She then questions if he is sending her away, to which he says the opposite, and that he decided to keep her with him. He then also says that due to this, he's decided to give her additional duties. She is excited as she will not have to worry about getting the boot anymore. She then remembers how Abel actually does not get along with the Imperial family, and it's not a surprise he was suspicious when they sent him a young girl that didn't act her age. He tells her that he has been getting complaints about the fourth rampart and that mercenaries are harassing wives and children. He then talks about how those dudes dared to do this under his territory and that they must have some nerve, which kind of frightens Fiona. He then gives her a paper to read, and she is shocked as it is about the mercenary group that Abel was a part of. She realizes that Abel probably told her to do this due to him knowing what has been on her mind lately. He then continues as tells her she is getting special rights to go teach the mercenaries a lesson. He tells her that she will be rewarded tenfold, so make sure to punish the fools tenfold. He then talks about the boy she is concerned about and tells her to escort him back to the 4th rampart. She folds the paper and tells him to leave it to her. Later, while in a carriage, she looks in wonder at all the snow, and she then shouts in excitement as someone has made a snowman. She asks Sigrun if they should make one too, to which he asks her why they would bother doing something like that. Fiona asks what has gotten into him, and asks if he can at least pretend to like the snow, to which he says he does not want to look like a fool. She then asks if he is mad that she never told him she fought in battle, to which he plays it off that he was not mad. She then lets out a sad face as Sigrun keeps giving her attitude. He then reluctantly says that if they have time left over, he will help her make one. He tells her she has to carry out the Duke's orders first, which excites her as he just promised to play with her afterwards. As he sits, he wonders why she would even want to play with him, especially since in his mind he has no clue how to have fun with girls his age, or what to even say to her. He also still has yet to fully believe that she is a mage, as he has not seen her battle yet. Or this may be due to the fact that he thinks she looks like a winter fairy instead, with her silver hair and red eyes, the white cheeks that are so pale they look unreal. To him, she also reminds him of a rabbit, but somehow she is the one to guard the 2nd rampart, which is the most dangerous one. He is both mad at the people who sent her out to do this, and also at her for just accepting this. He then mutters about how she should be taking care of herself rather than spending time worrying about him. He continues to wonder about why she has so much concern for an orphan mercenary, and wonders if she knows he is royal blood. He wonders if she is getting close to using him, but also wants to trust her. However, he cannot fully do this. He would be able to fully bear it if she ever betrayed him. Fiona then calls for Sigrun again and asks about the mercenary rules and how they are controlled. He tells her there are no rules apart from survival of the fittest, and that they prey on those weaker than them only. He continues that to control them, you have to threaten them with great force. She starts to understand this and notes that this group is very typical. She then decides that these dudes need some harsh justice so that even the slowest brute will get the message. He stares in dismay as she is smiling after hearing what he said, and then she thanks him, calling him great help. He then questions her on why she wants to know about dealing with mercenaries, to which she responds it's related to the Duke's orders, and since she did not know much about them. He then asks her what the Duke has ordered, to which the carriage then abruptly stops. Sigrun questions why the carriage has stopped, to which Fiona yells at him to look as they have finally arrived. They have made it to the 4th rampart, which looks like a bustling city. Fiona slams the door open as she announces she will get the Duke's orders done right away. However, Sigrun grabs her hand before she can step out. This was due to him being worried about the steps being too high on this carriage for her. He tells her she will fall if she steps down, so he jumps down first and puts his hand out, telling her to take it and step down carefully. She is radio silent, as his hands continue to stick out before she starts laughing at him. She asks why she is laughing before she apologizes and takes his hand. As she steps down, Sigrun notes that Fiona is a strange girl that is kind to strangers like him, but he is skeptical as to why she is so nice and friendly. However, a part of him wishes to repay her for all that she has done, and we see that she has fully landed on the ground. She thanks him for lending her a hand, to which he notes that maybe he'll be able to fully repay her with random acts of kindness like this. He also notices that he's slowly becoming a much kinder person. Later at some office, Fiona hands the paper to some dude who asks her if this is true, to which Fiona says it is, and that it even has the Duke's stamp of approval. The man then questions her since she is just a child. The guy tells her to stop fooling around and go home. She then tells him he does not have to believe her, but asks if he is ready for the consequences from the Duke. He suddenly stares at the paper again, and then notes that it does seem genuine. Fiona lifts up her skirt and then introduces herself, and says she is here on the Duke's order to deal with the unpleasant things going on in the 4th rampart. The man asks if she knows what unpleasant incident, to which she says they are listed on the letter. She asks if he would like her to read them out, to which he says no need and asks how he can help. She tells him to get soldiers and arrest the perpetrators, and then tell the townspeople to gather at the town square. She then asks Sigrun where the mercenaries hang out, to which he says the alehouse near the rampart wall. She then turns and tells the man that they are at the alehouse. As they leave, she believes enough prep work is done, and hopes the man takes them seriously now despite being kids. Sigrun asks what the Duke told her to do, as she is still thinking about how to punish the mercenaries. She does not plan on going easy, and taking into account Abel's wishes, this likely means some missing limbs. She then tells Sigrun it's nothing, as she does not want a 14-year-old to hear about this type of stuff. She tells him that she is just to watch the perpetrators and make a fair judgment. She then questions him, saying that he won't be coming along with her, right? To which he says that he is, which surprises her, as he reiterates he will be coming along as well. He asks if there is a reason for why he can't, to which she nervously says no. She then tells him it could be gruesome, but Sigrun says he's been in battle. He tells her his scars are recent, and that it may be hard to believe, but he can fight well. She agrees, but wonders what any of this has to do with coming along. She tells him that the case has nothing to do with him, as he tries to tell her that's not what he meant. He struggles to say it, but eventually he tells her he will be her shield in case anything happens. He continues that the dudes will be rough, so 2 people together is better than 1. He turns and then tells her to get going if she understands. His ears are completely red, as Fiona notes that it seems he is trying to look out for her, but then again she may be wrong, and then starts to follow him.